Hi everyone, it's Claire Batkin from Your OT Tutor and welcome to another Your OT Tutor tutorial. This time we're talking all about how to make a LinkedIn carousel, plus I'm going to throw in 17 other LinkedIn tips. Now you're probably sitting here thinking, why is an occupational therapist teaching me about LinkedIn? And I get it, it is a little bit strange. I am a registered practicing occupational therapist, but because I also have a clinical education business, I needed to find some sort of social media outlet to be able to get my name out there so people could find out about my work. Now, I'm on Instagram, I'm on Facebook, I'm on YouTube, but LinkedIn really seems to be the platform that works best for me, and it's one that I enjoy the most. So I actually became a little bit of a LinkedIn nerd and have worked out all the different tips and tricks that have helped me to really grow my audience. So now I'm currently sitting at about 15,000 followers. Majority of those have been gained in the last couple of years. I've had over 1.2 million views of my posts in the past year. I'm in the top 1% for the hospital and healthcare industry, and I love to be able to share my tips so that other health professionals start to enjoy using LinkedIn too. Because it really is a great way to build your brand, connect with other health professionals, and get involved with some really great collaborative projects. Now, just a little disclaimer, the content that I'm presenting is accurate at the time of recording, which is June 2025, but if you're watching this recording way down the track, Canva could look a little bit different. Some of the LinkedIn algorithm hacks could be a little bit different as well. And just keep in mind, just because it worked for me doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work for you. But hopefully there'll be something in there that's helpful for you. Now, if you're watching this and you're not already connected with me on LinkedIn and you are a health professional, make that your first job. Jump on now, find my profile and click the connect button. So this is what my profile looks like in June 2025. Could look a little bit different if you're watching this down the track sometime. What you need to look for is that down here, there'll be a button that says connect if we're not already connected. Once you hit that, I'll check out your profile, probably accept your connection, particularly if you're another health professional. Then you'll be able to send me messages. You'll also start to see some of my posts, hopefully start to pop up on your feed as well. Okay, so you're here to learn how to make a LinkedIn carousel, but I did promise you 17 other LinkedIn tips. So here's your tip number one. The first tip is that LinkedIn carousels are a great way to boost engagement on a post because if they're done well, they can keep people engaged with your post for a lot longer than something like a text post or an image post or even a video. And I'll show you why. Okay, so this is an example of one of my previous LinkedIn carousels. This one's 5 OT nightmares for Halloween. The whole idea is to have something engaging that makes them want to click through. And if they're tempted to click, then what that's signaling to LinkedIn is that it's actually good content. It's something that they're engaged with, that they want to keep going and keep reading through to the end. If you don't set up the carousel quite so well, maybe you won't get them all the way to the end, which isn't great. But if you can get them clicking through, every time that they're clicking, that's sending a signal to LinkedIn that, yep, this is good stuff. It's also increasing the amount of time that they're spending on the post itself, which is another good sign for LinkedIn that it's good content that they should share it more widely with your network and people beyond your network as well. Okay, so does all that clicking through actually translate to popular posts? If I look at my analytics, which is for the last 365 days, which ones have been my top performing posts in terms of impressions, if we scroll down, I'll point out which are the ones that are carousels. So this is a carousel. This is actually the same carousel, and I've just tweaked it a little bit. So I've recycled it, and we'll talk a little bit about that later on. This one's another carousel. This one's another carousel. This one's another carousel. So probably in those top 10 posts, 50% are carousels. So for me, they can do quite well. But that brings me to my next tip. You need to check what's working for you. Just because they've worked well for me, just because they work well for some other LinkedIn creators, doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to work for you. So what you need to do is actually go into your own analytics and keep track of what are your top performing posts, how are those carousels going compared to everything else. If it turns out that your text posts, which often maybe need a lot less effort to create, or a quick video actually perform really well for you compared to carousels, then it might be that, you know what, I'm not going to invest a whole lot of time in doing a lot of carousels very often. It might be something that you just do every now and then. But obviously, you just keep monitoring and see whether it's going to work for you. While I'm here in my analytics, it actually does lead me through to my next tip three, which is don't make all your posts carousels. Even if carousels do quite well for you, what the LinkedIn gurus say, those that have studied lots of different LinkedIn posts and what the algorithm is doing, they would say that in general, variety works better. So even if carousels work well, don't do them back to back, one after the other for all your posts. Mix it up with a few different things in between. So you might do a text post, then a carousel, then a video, then a static image, and then back to a carousel, back to a text post, mix it up. So if we have a look through mine, the carousels do quite well, so do the text posts. And obviously it's a lot quicker for me to type up a text post if you're pretty good at writing. So for me, it makes a lot of sense to do plenty of text posts, maybe a carousel once a week if I can fit it in, because it does take a little bit more time to pull together. Enough of the starter tips. Let's get into what you're actually here for, which is how to make a LinkedIn carousel. But the first question you're probably going to ask is, what do I make my carousel about? When I go through this topic with my one-on-one LinkedIn sessions or in my masterclass series, what we always start with is, what is your LinkedIn mission and who is your ideal audience? How do you want them to engage with your content? And then ultimately, what do you want them to buy from you? Because in the end, it does come down to money, what we can sell to people in some way so that we can actually stay in business. So if you're actually stuck back on that first bit of, what am I trying to achieve on LinkedIn? Who's my ideal audience? What am I trying to tell them or sell them? Then don't get too carried away writing your post just yet. Go back and start with that, because it's going to give you a lot more clarity when you're actually putting together your posts. Now, if you are feeling a little bit stuck on that first question of what are you here on LinkedIn for and who's your audience, maybe reach out for a one-on-one session and we can help you through that, because it will really make everything else you're going to do on LinkedIn so much easier. But for now, we're going to assume that you know exactly why you're on LinkedIn, what you're trying to sell, who your audience is. So as a bit of an example for me, I'm an occupational therapy clinical educator. My business is all about educating occupational therapists and other allied health professionals. So my key audience are those other allied health professionals and occupational therapists. And because I've got an education business, I want to show that I'm a really helpful person and can offer some educational content. So a lot of what I post on LinkedIn is that educational content related to the topics that I actually teach about in my paid memberships and paid resources and courses. So then whenever I'm going to post on LinkedIn, what I always think about is, okay, what am I trying to promote or ultimately sell that month in terms of my business? And then I try to post on that sort of topic. Now, in this example, I'm going to talk about a free webinar that I ran that was focused on supporting OTs to set up sole trader businesses. And I had a special guest come along to actually help out with that webinar. The whole idea of that webinar, which was offered free of charge, was so that it could serve as a lead magnet to then encourage people to come and use my paid services or to find out about my TPD memberships as well. And it was similar for my guest presenter. It was to show what sort of topics she's able to provide support around, to then hopefully encourage a few more people to reach out for those discovery calls. So if you've actually got something in mind that you want to promote, my next tip, number 4, is to don't start from scratch when it actually comes to making your carousel. If you've presented a webinar, if you've written a blog, maybe you've got a free PDF resource on the same topic, use that content as your starting point. Don't open up Canva with a blank screen and actually think, okay, what am I going to put on each of these carousel slides? Start with what you've already got and use AI wherever you can to actually speed up that process even further. So now before we jump into Canva and actually start building the carousel, I'm going to show you where I'm going to grab that content for to actually put into the carousel that's going to save my brain power and not have to rethink about all the content from scratch. So my idea for the carousel that I'm going to show you is that I ran a webinar which is all about answering people's questions about starting an OT sole trader business. There's probably 30 questions that were answered. In this carousel, I wanted to give them a taste of some of our answers to those questions. And I wanted to make sure that the answers that I chose to share were ones that would actually grab people's attention, that would actually give them some education right there on the spot, because it's something they were already thinking about, made them think, oh, wow, this is really helpful. What else was covered in this webinar? To then get them to sign up for the webinar, they join my mailing list, and then I have an opportunity to offer some other paid products to them as well. But in a webinar that lasted about 90 minutes, how do you actually pick out what were those top 5 questions? And then how do you turn that into some succinct text that you can actually put on a carousel post? What I'm going to do is show you 2 different programs that I use to speed the process along. Depending on what your budget is, some of these things are free, some of them are paid. I'm going to focus on the free products wherever I can and focus on the ones that most people seem to be using already, so hopefully it's a little bit familiar to you. But the starting point for me when building this carousel is going to be the transcript from that webinar. I want to find out, what do we actually say in the webinar? What are some of those key take-home messages that might look really good on a carousel? Okay, so if we want to start with a transcript, where can we get it from? At the moment, I'm using a program called Descript. It is a paid version that I'm using. There's lots of other programs out there that you can get a transcript from a video recording. If you presented your webinar in Teams or Zoom, you can probably even get the transcript directly from there. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time in here. I just wanted to quickly show you. To save time, I've done some of the background already. Went into my Zoom where the webinar was recorded. I downloaded that file and then I've come into Descript and I've actually uploaded it here in the file section, ticked all the boxes so that it then transcribed it and dumped it down here. Now, there's so many great things that you can do with Descript. I'm not going to go on about it, but just as a little side note, as a bit of a demonstration, see how you've got what they call filler words. So the ums, the ahs, the repeated words. You can right click on that, click remove filler words. You can see I've got 848 in the 90-minute recording. I'm going to click this magic button to remove them all. Wait a moment. And now you can see it's actually knocked off probably about 7 minutes of that recording by taking out those filler words. But it doesn't just take it out of the transcript, it actually edits those filler words seamlessly out of the video itself. Awesome, I know. Ask me about Descript another day, but it's a really big game changer if you do lots of recording or lots of video posts. Highly recommend it. But I digress. What I've come here for is to get the transcript. Now, I'm not actually going to go around and edit this, make sure that it's right word for word. It just needs to be close enough that I can take parts of that transcript, put it into another program. I'm going to show you ChatGPT, just the free version, because that's what people are familiar with, and then get ChatGPT to turn it into the content for my Canva slides. So to get the transcript out, I'm just going to get the full transcript. Now, if you already knew exactly which section of your recording you wanted to do your post about, you could actually edit this video just by highlighting the parts that you don't want, deleting that, it'll get rid of that, and then just produce the transcript based on whatever's remaining. But I'm going to just keep all of it in for this demonstration. You go up to this export button. You can see you can export the video, just the audio timeline. I'm going to go to transcript here. Leave all those settings, they look fine. I'm going to click export. Bring up your window here. Yep, I want to save it in there. And there you go. That transcript file as a Word document is going to be waiting for me in that folder. So let's go find that file. Here's the file here. Let's open up the Word document so you can see it. And there you go. That's my transcript that I've pulled straight out of the script. Now what I want to do is actually find which out of all these questions that we answered on the day, I think there was about 30, what are the top 5 that I want to answer? Because I've decided I'll make my carousel about the top 5 tips from the session that we want to share. You could come up with your top 3, your top 10, whatever it needs to be. But maybe just keep in mind how you're going to use this carousel. Is it just for LinkedIn where there's not really a limit on how many slides that you include? Or if you want to actually recycle and use part of it on something like Instagram where there is a limit, you can only have 10 pictures pop up, then maybe think about that when you're deciding how many questions that you're actually going to include in a post like this. Now, what I could do is I could scroll through here and just read through and then eventually go, oh, yes, that was a good one. I'm going to cover that. The other thing that I did is when I was preparing for the webinar itself, I had all the questions that we're going to answer in a Word document. So I could just look through that list and it'll at least point me in the right direction of whereabouts in the transcript will I find it. Or you can just use good old Control F and find a particular topic that you were wanting to include in your carousel. So for me, what I did, I actually did go back to that cheat sheet that had all the questions listed. And I just looked through this and I thought, which are the questions that are going to jump out the most to my audience? And it could be based on what are their pain points, what are the questions that come up all the time in things like discussion forums. So I had a look through and decided, okay, this one, how much experience do you recommend someone have before becoming a sole trader? Going to do that. So I could go back to my transcript, see roughly where it's going to come up in the order, or I could search for something like experience and find that part of the transcript. What else might I want to cover? Maybe I want to cover the next one. I'm primarily working in NDIS, but is it worth diversifying into aged care? That could be a good one. How do you manage your own superannuation, tax and leave? That could be a good one as well. I went through all this list anyway, came up with 5 that I thought would be helpful. Then what I do is I went back to the transcript, found the section of the transcript that talked about our answer, and then I went into ChatGPT. Now, what I've done to save a bit of time in this recording is I've actually done all the cut and pasting into ChatGPT already, but I'm going to show you the results so you can see what I've done. So first of all, with ChatGPT, and this is just the free version, so nothing too fancy, I've just said I'm creating a LinkedIn carousel based on a webinar I ran where OT sent in questions about becoming a sole trader. I will give you the transcript showing the answers to a question. Please review this and provide a short paragraph or dot points that could be added to a LinkedIn carousel summarizing our answer. So just give it enough information about what the purpose of the webinar was, what you're actually trying to achieve by getting it to summarize. And I've specifically said a LinkedIn carousel. So ChatGPT knows all this sort of stuff. It will know what works well for a LinkedIn carousel. So you can see I've put that in, make sure it's clear on the instructions. Yep, happy to help. So I've just done, the first question is how many years experience should an OT have before becoming a sole trader? Here is a transcript. So I went back into my transcript, make sure I found that part. This was a question here. I think it went all the way down to here. Went to copy, then went back into ChatGPT, pasted it into this part here, along with that little instruction. And then this is exactly what I did. I put that in, and then ChatGPT came up with, here's a concise summary that would work well as a slide in your LinkedIn carousel. So you can see it's given me the main sort of title part and just a few dot points. So basically, instead of me reading through all this again and try to think about what were the take-home messages, what are the parts that are going to stand out, I've used ChatGPT to do that for me. So I've got all that in there. So I've just done that for one question. As I said, I wanted to include my top 5 tips from the session. So then I just repeat that for the next ones. Now, if you're reading this and you're like, wow, that doesn't sound like me at all, you can tweak it and give ChatGPT a few more instructions to get the tone right. But otherwise, if it seems good enough as a starting point for you, just remember I actually wanted to have 5 top tips. So I just repeat that process again. So I've just said, that's good. I'll send you another question soon. ChatGPT is ready for me. Went into here. The next question is, should you diversify across many funding streams or just stick with one? Here's the transcript answer. Went back to my transcript, cut and pasted the next section and dumped it in here. And then ChatGPT has come up with this, a nice heading for me and a few dot points. And remember, way back at the start, I said, yep, those amount of dot points are fine. If you actually want to have less writing, you can just be a bit more directive with the instructions that you give ChatGPT. So it comes up with the right amount of content to start with. You can see I've repeated again for question 3. There's the tips. It's starting to throw some emojis in there now. Question 4. You can see it's given me the same sort of structure, so that sort of balance is going to work really well for a carousel instead of having lots of information on one side and only a little bit on another. And then last question, I've done that as well. Here's a transcript, here's a summary. And then look, it'll even offer to do some bonus slides and things for you, but basically this is all I needed to get me started. And then now I've got this content that I can take and put into Canva, and that's where we're going to head next. Okay, so now we're in Canva, and just a disclaimer, I have paid for the paid version of Canva, but you don't have to have the paid version to be able to do what I'm going to show you today. If you've worked in Canva before, all your recent designs will show up here. If you're new to it, it's going to be pretty blank, but make sure you set yourself up an account so that you can keep track of anything you're going to create. So now if you've never created a LinkedIn carousel before in Canva, what I'd suggest you do is you start with the search bar up here. Change this firstly to templates, and this is going to search all the Canva templates for LinkedIn carousels. And basically just type in LinkedIn carousel, press enter, and you can see it's already got it here in terms of the optimal format. So you can see the ratio seems to be that 4:5, because the idea being that on a mobile phone, that takes up the majority of somebody's screen versus a square or a landscaped carousel. Now you can make it in a completely different orientation, but you can see based on the fact that most of these carousels are in this format, that's what seems to work well on LinkedIn. So you can scroll through this if it's got the little pro version, but you can see there are plenty of versions where you can get them completely for free. So you can have a scroll through, see which one seems to resonate with your sort of branding. Don't fixate on the colors because the colors can be easily changed. But for example, let's go choose one of the free ones. If we went here, it shows you what the carousel looks like on the subsequent slides as well. Shows you similar ones as well. You can see whether they're the paid ones or free ones. And yep, happy with that. Customize this template. And the first thing you want to do is actually make sure that the branding colors match your branding. So the first thing you can do is say, yep, that's not really my colors. You click on the box that you want to change. You can actually upload a brand kit. Again, this isn't a Canva tutorial, but you'll be able to find plenty of people to tell you how to do that. And it's already got some of my colors in here. So say I wanted to change it to one of my main background colors. Let's just change that slightly. Maybe I want to change these words. Again, change that text color to my branding colors. And maybe we want to change that color as well. Like I said, don't stress too much if the template that you choose isn't your colors or close to it, because you can easily change that. So you can see you've got your title slide. This is a really basic one, so you can definitely add a lot more to it. Some have photos of yourself, some have other related images. You can really choose whatever's going to suit your style. But you can see as you scroll in, the main content sections are going to have a lot more detail. Now, you can see here, this is a really short one. Say you actually wanted to cover one of these type of slides for every single tip out of the 5 tips. All you need to do is come up into this section here and click duplicate page, and it's going to give you the same one again. We want that one again, and we do that till you get 5. Let's see how many we've got now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Perfect. And then if you're going to do that alternate pattern of colors, then you go in and fiddle with that before you get too stressed out about it. Let's do this. Maybe we'll just change that a few different things. There we go. Okay. Now, once you do come up with a Canva template that you're happy with, that's in all your branding colors, remember part of this tutorial was talking about how we can do LinkedIn posting in a sustainable, efficient way. So what you want to be able to do is then recycle this template. What I'll show you is I've created some other templates already. I'll just go back to my main menu, my home. And you can see I've got a few other different carousel options that I've used before, a few different designs. If you want to use it again, what you need to do is to go up to these 3 dots. Don't actually click into it yet. Just click up to the 3 dots from your home page and click on Make a Copy. And then what that's going to do is bring up a copy of that carousel. Now I'm going to go into this one. I did a previous one on being an OT nerd. I'm going to go up the top here to change it. Carousel XX. We'll change it to something later on. And then now I can go in and edit this, but then later on, if I ever want to repost this same carousel, I've got it saved somewhere else and I can go into Canva and download it. Okay, but let's go back to the design we're actually going to start with. Go to my home. Now, to save time, I have actually created this carousel already. I have actually even posted it on LinkedIn already, so you'll be able to see exactly how I set it up and did it. But what I'll do is I'll go into this one now. You can see this was a template that I created before. I've got a little bit of my Your OT Tutor insights. What I'd suggest is having your logo or your face somewhere on here. Make sure the branding colors match your website, match whatever it is in your logo, so that ideally what people will start to get used to is whenever they're quickly scrolling through their LinkedIn feed, if they notice these colors and they know that they like your content, it might be that little signal just to pause that little bit longer and go, oh, is this one of Claire's posts? Yep, it is. I'm going to keep reading. I'm going to click on that. So branding can be really important to help catch that initial engagement from people. Okay, so what I did is I fiddled around, I went with my 5 questions, use a combination of different fonts, but not too crazy, just to make it a little bit more engaging. So I've got Your OT Tutor Insights, Q&As about becoming a sole trader. The arrow is often good just to make people want to click to the next slide. Now, if I've scrolled down, I did things a little bit differently to the LinkedIn carousel where they have a little bit more of a subtitle page. I've launched straight into the content, and that's to try and keep my carousel as concise as possible so that I can use it across other platforms as well. So now what have I included in the actual content slides itself? So you can see here I've included numbers. I've told them there's going to be 5 tips, so that's just helpful to actually have them numbered. And I've got the main heading or the question that we're going to answer really clear so that people can quickly just skim read that. So how many years experience should I have? So now what I need to do is I need to go into ChatGPT and actually cut and paste the answer that it gave me into there. But this brings me to my next main tip that I wanted to share, the one out of the 17, is that you use AI to start off your post, but it shouldn't write it completely. So even the content that I'm going to put into my carousel here, ChatGPT has given me a starting point, but I still need to go in and edit what it's told me to make sure it actually sounds like me talking so that it looks like my writing style as well. If something sounds too much like AI has written it, it's not really going to be that engaging for your audience. It's not going to be unique to your voice. So AI is your starting point, but ideally you go back in and polish it off and make it sound like you. Okay, so then you repeat that till you've got all of your slides filled up. And then at the end, what you need to include is some sort of call to action. So at the end of the day, yes, you want to give away some really helpful education for people, but it does need to lead back to some sort of paid product or service so that you can keep doing what you're doing and keep your business running. So in this case, what I've got is a plug for my guest presenter, so people can go and find out a little bit more about her services. I've also got where they can actually find the recording of the webinar that I'm talking about. So the link to find it is there and a little bit of a summary of what it's all about. And then I've also got this final slide, which is pretty similar in all of my carousels, basically encouraging them to keep following me on LinkedIn, because if you can keep building a good, engaged following on LinkedIn, it's going to give you more opportunities to move them off LinkedIn down the track onto your email list and into your paid products and services. So you've got this finished, you're happy with all the slides. Now you've got to find out, how do I actually get these slides onto a carousel on LinkedIn that does that nice swipey thing? So something like this, where it actually goes with a nice swiping motion. If it's on a mobile phone, they swipe. If they're on a desktop, they just click. How do you get it to go from those individual slides into something like this that's all joined together? Because if you've ever posted multiple images on LinkedIn at once, it doesn't stay in this nice pattern. So the trick is how you download your file on Canva. So if we jump back into Canva, what you need to do is you need to go up to this share button and you need to download it as a PDF. So to get your PDF, you go to your download button here, select the slides that you actually want to include. So I've actually got a few extra slides in here. So let me just see, where does this go up to? Goes up to slide number 9. So if we go back to the share button, click download, you're going to change this setting up here so that it actually goes to PDF. Standard is fine, and then change your pages. I'm going to unselect all. We're going to tick the ones we want. We want these. Now, obviously, if you're a bit more organized and you've only got the slides that you actually want, you don't have to fiddle around with this. You just make sure that select all is highlighted and then you'll get all your slides. I click done here, click download. It's going to pop up as a little PDF download once it's ready, and then that just goes to your download folder. So I can jump into that and I'll be able to find it. Now, how do you actually post that on LinkedIn? So if we jump back to our LinkedIn feed here, this is where you're going to start a post. So you need to jump into this section here. And what you need to do is click on this little plus button, because what you're looking for is this document. Basically, you're now putting it up as a PDF document. You go here to choose your file. Remember, it'll be in your downloads folder. Click on that and it will upload that. Now what you need to do is actually give it a title, something that actually explains what your document's all about. So I'm just going to call this 5 Q&As about becoming a sole trader. Do that. Once you're happy with that, you can do a quick flick through, make sure everything downloaded in order, you didn't miss anything. Yep, that's fine. You click done. And then now you need to think about, but what do I write in this section? And that takes me to your next tip in terms of how much do you actually write with a text post? And the answer is going to be, it depends. It depends what sort of format you're actually posting. Now, obviously, if you're doing a text only, probably the more text, the better. You need to get your point across in words only. If you've got an image only, then yep, you can do a fair bit of writing as well. But if you have a video or if you have a carousel, the value for the engagement is going to come from them actually clicking through the carousel or them actually watching the video. So you don't want to give away all the content in the text that you write up here, because then there's no motivation for them to actually click through. You've already given away all the answers. So for a carousel, less is more when it comes to this description here. Now I'll jump to tip 7, which is that you'll need to learn some basic copywriting techniques if you want to actually help your posts stand out on LinkedIn and for people to actually want to read your posts. Obviously, if you're doing lots of text posts, it becomes really important, but even when you're only writing a little bit of text here, it can be really helpful. So some basic things that you need to know is that you need to have some sort of hook or some sentence that's going to grab people's attention right at the start. You've also got to make it really reader friendly. So something they can skim read, not a big paragraph that's just a slab of text that actually hurts people's brains to read through. Spaced out with lots of, keep it nice and simple with one line, then a space, one line, then a space. It also means making sure that you don't have hashtags and emojis all the way through, because that just becomes a little bit annoying to read as well. But if we just focus on what we're actually going to write here, I'll show you what I did come up for this post. Now, again, my suggestion so that you can make this post recyclable, you can easily repost it 6 months down the track if it's still relevant to your audience, is you want to make it easy to find. So just like it's easy to find the actual document itself in Canva, you want to find this text part that you're about to write in Canva as well. So if you just come back to your Canva slides here, you right click anywhere on the slide, you'll come up with this option here where you can write a comment. If you click on that, basically you just get a big free notepad to write whatever you like. So if you do lots of image posts or carousels, it makes sense to store a lot of the text that's going to go alongside your post here in Canva. If you don't use Canva so much, there's probably lots of other apps you can use, or if you're really old school, you can even do what I do. And sometimes I still just use PowerPoint to actually keep track of my ideas and my notes. So for example, if I jump into my PowerPoint slide, so what I do for every month is I have a PowerPoint presentation. I have one slide for each daily post that I do, and I just have something to make it easy to find. So this is a heading about it, or I might drop in, if it's an image post, I'll drop in the images here as well. And then what I do in here is I write down what I'm actually going to post alongside that image or that carousel. So I do the text part, but then I also have the follow-up section, which is where I'll script out any follow-up comments that need to go, which might be where they can find the link to whatever it is I'm sharing. Might be just about some other topics that encourage discussion as well. How and when you actually post and how you engage on your own post, whether you should drop links in the comments or in the post itself, that's a whole nother course and something that I do cover in my masterclass series or in my one-on-one sessions. So if you would like to learn more about that, then just reach out for one of those options. But otherwise, what I've got here, this is the content that I'm going to share. So if I was someone that used Canva a lot, I'm just going to copy and paste that. I'll show you how it would look in Canva. Go back to our carousel here. Just paste that in there. You can see it's even kept all the spacing for me. You can close out of that. Then one day if I want to come back into this carousel and reuse it again to post, I can come into this comment and actually see exactly what I put up in the post itself. Now my tip would be, if you were going to recycle this post, you can actually do it, but I'd suggest in actually tweaking some of these words. So if you've got this stored alongside your carousel, it's easy to find what you've already said about this in your previous post, so you can change it up for the next time around. What I would also suggest, if we go back to LinkedIn, is the actual name of your document I would change. So if you're going to repost this when it comes to the uploading part and you have to give it a name, call it something different, because then hopefully it won't be so obvious to the LinkedIn bots that you're actually just recycling something that you've already shared. And you can see back when I was in my own analytics, I had the same carousel, pretty much the same, slightly different wording probably, but they both did really well because the topic was popular. So we'll go back into here. Now remember, I've still got on my copied clipboard that text I want to put in here. So I'm just going to paste it again. Hot tip, see how then it removed all my white lines. If you actually go paste as plain text, it will keep that in there for you. It just saves you going through and adding them back in. And you can see it's a lot easier to read when it's all spaced out like that compared to what it was like before. Now, while we're still on this writing part, the actual text part, couple more tips for you. The first one is in regards to tagging people. You should really only tag people if you think there's a chance that they're going to engage. If you get a bit excited and tag everybody you know who seems to be on LinkedIn and they don't actually engage with your post, that actually isn't a really good look for LinkedIn and it'll actually penalize the reach of your post. So yes, definitely tag people if you want them to come in and comment, but make sure you give them a heads up that you're going to tag them. If it's something like this where my guest presenter may want to come in and add some comments, I'll give them a heads up that, hey, I'm going to do a post about this topic tomorrow morning. Jump on if you like, and you can add some of your own comments. If you don't think they're actually going to engage on your post because you know they're super busy, they don't jump on LinkedIn till nighttime, then maybe don't tag them. You can write their full name and then maybe later on jump back in and tag them. The next tip that I'm going to share is in regards to hashtags. Now, if you're someone that actually is used to Instagram and you put hashtags for everything, LinkedIn doesn't like that so much. It sees it as a bit of spam. The other thing about hashtags is it doesn't actually increase your reach so much. So previous on LinkedIn, it actually used to be a way that people could search for different post topics, not really so much anymore, but there is still value in including a few of these hashtags, because when LinkedIn actually publishes your post and it gives it its own unique URL, these hashtags actually end up in that URL. So if I go back to one of my other posts just to show you, this is one, just a text post. What you can see up here in the slug is that the hashtags I've used are occupational therapy, NDIS, your OT tutor. You can see it's got my name here, but it's also got occupational therapy, NDIS, your OT tutor. So if somebody is searching for any of those terms, even on like a Google search, there's a chance that your post could actually come up in one of those searches. So it is helpful to choose some targeted hashtags that are relevant for your topic. Just don't go overboard because it just does look a little bit like spam. Okay, if we jump back to what we're trying to post here, the next thing that we're going to talk about is, okay, it's all ready to go. When do we actually post it? When do you actually click this blue post button? My tip, and this is another one of your tips, is you should post when your audience is most likely to be scrolling, but also when you're able to engage on your post. Now, in terms of when your audience is most likely to be scrolling, that could vary, particularly if you've got an international audience, even if people mostly engage at 10 o'clock in the morning. 10 o'clock in the morning where? So that's one thing to consider. In my case, I like to post first thing in the morning because I think I catch a lot of allied health professionals, maybe before they've started their morning day while they're having their bit of morning coffee, maybe scrolling through emails and other things before they jump in and start their day. Seems to be working for me okay at the moment. But again, you can go back to your own analytics, you can experiment a little bit and see if there's a particular part of the day that seems to work well for your audience. The second part of that is to post when you're able to engage on your post. So what happens is when you actually post something on LinkedIn, LinkedIn doesn't share it with the whole world. What they do is they only put it on the feeds of a certain amount of your followers. And then if there's not really a lot of engagement on your post in the first hour or two, that's not really a good sign for LinkedIn, and it won't actually prioritize sending out your post to the rest of the world. So what you want to try and do is get as much engagement on your post in that first 1 to 2 hours. And that means that if people are starting to like or comment, you need to actually be around to respond to those comments so you can fuel a bit of a discussion. And that's what LinkedIn really likes to see, not just one-off comments, but actual discussions, and where more people get pulled into the discussion as well. So make sure you're posting when you're actually able to engage. Now, you're probably thinking then, if I need to be here anyway to engage, what's the point of all these scheduling tools? And that takes me to my next tip is, should you actually use the scheduling tools? I personally do, even though I'm generally around when my post goes live, because it just saves me doing all this cutting and pasting that we've just been doing now. We're actually uploading it. If you have to write this for the first time, that can take a little bit of time. So if you're someone that can pre-prepare your posts, you can upload it knowing that it's going to go live when you're actually still there, but it saves you having to post it live. And in terms of whether this has any penalties for your reach, doesn't seem to have any impact for me personally. I personally use the LinkedIn scheduling tool. It's not perfect, but it's good enough for what I need to use it for. I don't know whether you'd get any penalties from using an external scheduling tool, something like Buffer, but if LinkedIn does the job for you, then it's probably the safest option. So for me, sometimes I'll write these posts the night before, a bit of a night owl, that's when I do my work, but I don't want to post it in the middle of the night when nobody's scrolling. So what I'll do is I'll come to this scheduling tool, is click schedule for later, you change the date, change the time. Okay, we want it to be the next morning, we want it to go out at 7:30. And then you click next, it will give you the confirmation up here. That's when it wants to go out. Yes, that's when I want it to go out. You do a final check, and if you click schedule, then it's going to go in there. Then in terms of how do I find that again if I want to change anything about it, what you need to do, if you go back to your starter post, you'll see a little clock. Click on your clock here, and then you need to go to view all scheduled posts, and that's where it will be. Now, in this case, I'm actually going to delete it. You can post it straight away. You can modify it when it's going to post or edit it. But because I've already posted this before, I'm just going to delete it. So I'll delete that now. Okay, but now if I jump back into that post when I actually did share it live, so here is the actual post when I did post it live. You can see when you tag somebody, and you do that just by putting the @ symbol, then starting to type their name, it'll just turn blue and then it becomes hyperlinks. Then your viewers can just click on that and jump straight to those profiles. So I will always tag my business page, a little bit more about those later as well. And you can see they can now scroll across and see it there. So now my next hot tip, and I have said that you can recycle this post just by sharing it again somewhere, just changing a few things so it doesn't look exactly the same, but you can also share the same content in a different format as well. So you can see now I've got all these tips here. You could quite easily cut and paste this into a little bit more of a blog post that could go on your website or could be reposted as a LinkedIn article. You could also take one of these individual slides and turn it into a bit of an image post with some text alongside it, or just take the content from this and expand on it a little bit and make it a text post. So again, you've got all these ideas now within this one post that you can just redo and use again. You don't need to start from scratch. My next hot tip as well, because I did touch on the term articles. So there are LinkedIn articles, there's also LinkedIn newsletters. This is something I'd really encourage people to do. And when they go through my LinkedIn masterclass, I show them exactly how to set up a LinkedIn newsletter, because basically it's a way that you can get your content into people's inbox, even if they're not on LinkedIn all the time. Hot tip, set up a newsletter, and then you can use some of this content to become basically like an article, which then is the same format as a newsletter. Then my next tip, let's come back to how I said your business page. So a little bit of a bonus one, because it sometimes comes up in terms of should I actually have a business page, particularly if you're just like a solopreneur like me, it's just you. My recommendation would be to have it, but to put about 90% of your effort into your personal page and to do most of your communicating, your posting via your personal page. But it's sometimes nice just to have a business page as well. If I click on this, it'll take you to my business page. This is my view, but you can see, you can click this button and this is how other people see it. Still got 6,000 followers, so that just gives me another way to reach people that maybe have come across the Your OT Tutor brand name, don't necessarily know my name, but they can type this in and my business page will come up and then they'll be able to find me from there. Like I said, don't invest a lot of time into your business page because a lot of the traction you'll get will be from your personal page because people want to buy from people, not from business names. Now, one more tip that I just wanted to throw in there is that if you actually need to share some sort of link, so in this case, I'm talking about a webinar recording, how can they actually find it? They need to get some sort of link. You can see I haven't added it in here. And the reason for that is if you put an external link in here, LinkedIn doesn't like to promote it because basically they want people to stay on their platform, not to go off clicking links and leaving LinkedIn. So what people tend to do is they might put it in the comments. The tricky thing is if it's in the comments, it's hard for people to actually find. You can't pin comments. As soon as people start commenting, it'll actually start to disappear. You can see you can actually see my link to the learning library because even though there's a fair few comments, it's still actually popping up. Enough people have clicked on it. So what you need to do though is if you do need to share a link, you just do need to come back in here and make sure you share it a few times if people are looking for it. If it's something where you're not really too worried about the reach, you just want people to click on that link to get the free thing or to sign up for the webinar, then put it in here. It might compromise your reach, but it's going to be at least easy for people to do what you want them to do, which is to click on that link. Okay, well, thanks for hanging around to the end. If you are a health professional, in particular an occupational therapist, make sure you check out and sign up for my free Your OT Tutor learning library. Plenty of other tutorials, webinars, resources, including those related to LinkedIn. So jump on and check those out. And if you do have any questions, here's where you can find me. You can email me, you can visit the website. My link tree will tell you about all my upcoming CPD options. And if you'd like to jump straight to my LinkedIn resources, that's the link you need there. It'll take you to information about my LinkedIn masterclass, but there's also some information about freebies. There's also, when it's available, some information about that short self-directed starters course that will hopefully be coming later in 2025. If you do have any questions, reach out. Love to hear from you. And thanks for watching.